I've always found unconventional training methods exciting. Extreme strength endurance in the style of Steve Justa, prisoner-style workouts made up of thousands of reps using basic body weight exercises, rack pulls above the knee, and uncommon deadlift variations from back in those early Metal and Iron and Alpha Destiny days, using stones and sandbags to break through that early intermediate plateau and build lots of muscle, the 20-rep squat program. It's always really motivating when something you haven't seen before comes around and reminds you that the modern interpretation of optimal isn't the only way of doing things. One style of training, though, usually considered unconventional by those who train strictly for bodybuilding, gets me fired up more than any other. It's when sport-specific training builds a muscle beyond where you'd ordinarily get to using basic bodybuilding methods, when developing a skill gets you jacked as a side effect. Sandbag lifting is a great example. Training to get better at the sandbag to shoulder leads to a back density you don't often see elsewhere. Gymnastics ring training and bicep development is another great example. For a couple months now, I've been hooked on something like that: arm wrestling for the forearms. It's safe to say no one does forearms like arm wrestlers. The development is often so ridiculous that, without a double take, your mind is likely to flash back to those early synthol days. At this point, I've probably watched 50 different arm wrestling forearm training videos, and the thing that always stands out most to me is how it's done. Rather than basic stuff like 3 sets of 10 or 5x5, most of what I've seen is all about ultra-high volume. Hundreds of lightweight reps focused on the pump, as well as dozens of heavy singles done throughout the day greasing the groove style, exercises where the range of motion is almost non-existent, focused on small, unknown muscles in the arm, isometrics and vulnerable positions, twisting exercises, grip training for the fingers and wrists, and of course, lots of arm wrestling. After seeing all the muscle those guys built, I knew I had to get in on it myself. So for the last 60 days, give or take a few, I've been experimenting with one small part of arm wrestling training: insanely high rep band exercises, and the results have been great. Before getting to those results, let me briefly go over what I've actually been doing. It's funny how things line up sometimes. Right before I got interested in high-rep forearm training, I started having some wrist pain for the first time in about 2 years. That seems to be how it goes. Every couple years, I'll randomly get an uncomfortable feeling on the top side of one of my wrists when doing any kind of push-up. Switching to parallettes for a few weeks usually fixes the issue, and I'll be fine again for another couple years, but this time around, I wanted to take a more active approach to healing. I figured I'd start doing lots of reverse band curls and wrist extensions as part of my warm-up, hoping that would pump enough blood into the area to let me continue on with my high-rep floor-based push-ups. 2 days into that, I got recommended the first of the many arm wrestling forearm training videos I'd soon go on to watch. Because the band extensions weren't taking much effort and were definitely helping with the wrist issue, I figured I'd take it a bit further and give the high-rep band stuff an honest try. Quick disclaimer, I've been doing high-rep band curls and pull-aparts for years, and I train every day with either sandbags or calisthenics, both of which work the forearms a lot, so just know the band training is an addition to that. Also, I'm not an arm wrestler. I can't claim to know exactly why each of these movements is done and how they might carry over to an actual arm wrestling match, nor am I too interested in the details at the moment. I'm just a lifter who wants bigger forearms. That out of the way, as part of my warm-up every single day, I've been doing multiple sets of 100 with a few different exercises using light bands, and on the days I train calisthenics, I've also been finishing my workouts with 100 reps for each exercise using a heavier band as well. My setup is typically sandbags 2 to 3 times a week and calisthenics 4 to 5 times a week, so we're talking thousands of reps done with both light and moderately heavy band tension. When doing these exercises, there are 2 different grips I like to use. The first one I got from Devin Larat. I figure if you're going to take advice from anyone, it might as well be from the best, right? So put the band under your foot so there's tension, and then all you have to do is put your hand all the way through the band so it's around your wrist like that. Then you're going to take the outside part, wrap it around your palm like that. Take the inside part, and then wrap it around the outside of your palm. So it ends up like this. And I'll show you from a different angle because it can be hard to figure out at first, but once you do it a few times, it becomes pretty easy. Take the outside part, wrap it around the inside of your palm. Take the other side, wrap it around the outside of your palm. You end up with the band in your hand like this. When I'm doing the first exercise, which is a basic wrist curl, I like to take the part of the band that's further up near the fingers and move it down, or else it kind of tends to flip on you. It's really annoying. So both parts of the band are overlapping each other, and then just start repping away. Do hundreds of these, just basic wrist curl. The next one is the wrist extension. All you're going to do take your hand, once you're in this position with the same grip, flip it upside down. It's going to feel a bit awkward at first because there are two different sides of the band kind of pulling on your fingers, but kind of get used to it after a second and it won't feel so weird anymore. So have it like this, and we're just pumping away with the wrist extensions. That's the second exercise I like. Those are the two I like to do with that grip. The next grip is one that I just kind of came up with myself. I'm sure other people do it too, but so you'll put your foot through the band, only this time you're going to put your hand through so it's on your palm, and you're going to want to make it so that the inside of the band has slightly less tension. So just move it that way a little bit. So now there's more slack on the outside. You do that because what you're going to do next is fold the band together like this and then grab onto it. If you can see that, I'll show you from another angle again. So it's in your hand, make sure the inside has more tension, more slack on the outside. And you're going to take both sides, fold it, and just hold on to it. Now it's like you're holding on to this end of it. From here, you can do the wrist curls too. It pulls from a slightly different position, so it feels different enough to warrant doing it as well. So you do the wrist curls, flip it upside down, wrist extensions. I like to have my thumb, I guess you could call it like a false grip for this one. Wrist extensions, pretty basic. Those are the 4 so far. After that, I'm going to do the same thing on this hand, just to show you again. Put the band in the palm of your hand. Make sure the inside has less slack, and then grab both parts, fold it, and then hold on to that. Hold on to it. We got the curls, got the extensions. Now the next one I like to do is I don't know what this is called, but just have it so that the tension is on the front part of your fingers, and all you're going to do is just this motion. So it's not a curl, it's not an extension, it's halfway in the middle. Do that for 100 reps. And then the final one I like with this grip is to take a underhand position and just twist. That's all it is. Very small range of motion, but you do it for a little while and you'll feel your forearms just completely pump up. That's the heavier band I use during my warm-ups. I like to use both of these super lightweight bands and just do both at the same time. Again, that first grip, put your hands through, try to make sure the bands aren't all twisted, and then outside goes around, inside around, around, so you get pretty quick at it. Start doing the curls like this, just pumping away. There's no need to try to be slow or controlled or anything like that. You don't need to worry about being slow on the eccentric or anything. It's all about that contraction and getting a pump. And flip your hand upside down, do the extensions. I know it probably looks funny, but it does the trick. Got that done. Then switch to this grip, palm of your hands. Take some of the slack out of the inside. Grab on. We got the curls. Got the extensions. Got whatever this halfway one is. And last we have the twist. This one probably looks the most fun. And that's it.
Now for the results. First is that wrist pain I mentioned earlier. It went away after about a week and hasn't come back since. I can do every push-up variation again pain-free, which has been great, though it was expected. The second benefit I didn't expect, though it makes sense. At the beginning of last year, I overdid the volume, doing lots of calisthenics, sandbags, and trying to improve my planche balance with stuff like frog stands all at the same time, and I developed some elbow tendonitis for the first time in my life. Rest, stopping the planche stuff, and switching to a neutral grip for my pull-ups fixed the issue for the most part, but ever since then, my left elbow hasn't liked overhand pull-up variations. Well, since I started doing these high-rep band exercises, I haven't had even a trace of that tendonitis, and I can actually do overhand pull-ups again pain-free, though I do still prefer the neutral grip. For these reasons alone, I believe the high-rep band training is worth it, but let's move on to the fun stuff, muscle. I didn't plan ahead like I should have. I don't have a dedicated before picture, but I do have a lot of footage where you can clearly see my forearms, and I do think the difference between now and a couple months ago is noticeable. My forearms were already decently developed before the experiment, and I have gained some weight since the before videos, so I'll leave it up to you to decide. I'm not trying to hit you with a trust me bro, but I do think the top sides of my forearms look more defined, and there does seem to be more mass overall. Has the growth been insane like in some of the arm wrestling forearm transformation videos out there? I wouldn't say so, but that's not surprising considering I've only been doing this for about 2 months. Actual muscle growth is a slow process. The fact that there's a noticeable difference at all is very promising in my opinion. I plan on continuing this indefinitely, so I'll make an update video later on down the road. That said, there's been another change I've noticed that I believe is just as worthwhile as actual muscle growth. My forearms are always pumped. When I used to feel my forearms, they'd always have some noticeable give, if that makes sense. Like, though they were there, the muscles were soft and relaxed. Now, whenever I feel them, it's like they're pumped, like they just went through an intense training session or something, even when they haven't. It carries over to the next day, too. I'll train at 4 p.m. one day, wake up the next day, and it's like the pump never went away. Is this just what it feels like to have more forearm muscle, or does ultra-high rep training cause this effect? I can't say for sure, but what this means is that my forearms look bigger as I go through life. Whether I've actually added any significant size or not, the difference is very noticeable throughout the day. I'll be typing at my computer and roll up my sleeves and get hit with an instant feeling of pride when I realize the hard work is paying off. That alone has motivated me to keep going with the experiment. Joint health and all that is awesome and should probably be the most important thing, but sometimes you just can't help it. Muscle is cool. The final benefit I've seen is in strength. After years of sandbag and calisthenics training, my forearms aren't usually a weak point, but since I started doing this stuff, they just feel stronger, more reliable. When I lift a sandbag, there's a feeling of confidence I've gained. The same is true with pull-ups, especially when I use any kind of false grip position. Everything seems more locked in when I do my push-ups too. I don't believe my actual grip strength has improved much, being completely honest, but having the extra mass on my forearms, or the feeling of extra mass from the constant pump, adds a layer of stability that wasn't there before. It's almost like if you've ever gone on an extreme weight cut to get shredded and continued squatting heavy the entire time. When you get lean enough and lose that final bit of padding around your midsection, it's like you suddenly feel way less stable and unsure of how things will go. Once you add that weight back, the confidence returns. With my forearms, it's like I've been shredded forever and finally just experienced that extra padding for the first time. I wouldn't go as far as to say there's a night and day difference or anything like that, but any kind of improvement from something that's been so easy, hasn't taken up much time, and hasn't used up many or possibly any of my recovery resources is a great thing. Ultra high volume using light weight and a very small range of motion, exercises almost completely contraction based, no weighted stretch or lengthened bias. In terms of modern thinking, this doesn't sound at all like something that would add size. Why then does it work? There are lots of possibilities. Maybe the pump training just acted as a form of active recovery and led to me tapping into more gains from all the pull-ups and sandbag lifting. Maybe there's some kind of nucleus overload magic going on, or perhaps it's just straight up metabolic stress, something sarcoplasm. I can't say for sure which thing it is, and I think that's okay. In the fitness space, we put so much time towards trying to figure out the why. Why does this happen? But the truth is, knowing the why doesn't change the outcome. If it works, it works. And sometimes I think it's okay to leave it at that. Whatever the reason, this experiment has changed my forearms for the better. I'm gonna keep going with it, and I hope you'll give it a try too. If you like this video, you might enjoy my book and training program, Sandbag Hypertrophy, over on Amazon. It's a deep dive into using sandbags and calisthenic circuits to get strong like a strongman, yoked like a wrestler, fit like a trail runner, and functional like a residential mover. I'll put a link to the book, as well as a link to the video I made going over one of the programs from the book in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.